All right, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Connor here with Workzone. I'm one of the product specialists, and I'm also joined by our CEO, Ash, and our CTO, Yvonne. We're very excited to show you what's on the horizon for Workzone. Before we get started, just a few quick notes. We are going to have some Q&A time at the end of the webinar. We'll ask that you please type your questions in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll answer those questions as we get to that Q&A portion of our call. If we don't have a chance to answer your question, we'll certainly have a member of our team follow up after today's webinar to answer those questions. One other final note, by default, since we have over 200 folks on the webinar today, you are muted by default to prevent any background noise or feedback. Again, please feel free to type any questions in the GoToWebinar control panel. There is also a chat pane as well. Please reserve that for just reactions, general communication, and whatnot. All right, so with that all said, I'll hand it over to Ash.
Thanks, Connor. Great to see a large crowd. Exciting. Hey everyone, Ash Tidvania, CEO at Workzone, and I'm joined by Yvonne, who's our Chief Technology and Product Officer, and will be walking us through some exciting stuff on this webinar. When Yvonne and I sat down a few weeks ago to think through what we want to share on this webinar, two options crossed our mind. One was, should we just do a feature dump and bore the hell out of you all? Or second, should we spotlight some of the most relevant and exciting stuff that's coming up? But equally importantly, also talk about the why, which is why are we building what we're building? I feel eventually Workzone is in the business of serving humans, right? And the best work happens when both users and folks like us are on the same page in terms of what we are building and why we are building it, right? So that's what we'll do in the next 56 minutes or so. And so with that, let's get started. Simple agenda. We'll begin by spotlighting what's changed at Workzone over the last year. I've been here for 2 years, almost 2 years, but a lot has changed in the last 12 months, all for the good reasons. And we want to make sure that we get you all up to speed with the various transformations happening at Workzone. From there on, we will share with the group some of the feedback we've been hearing from our users, lots of conversations, lots of ideas. Many of those ideas have made it to our roadmap, some of what we'll share as we go along on this webinar. Then we'll spotlight some of our recent releases, exciting stuff, but most importantly, some of our more popular features that we've launched off late, and we'll give you a glimpse of what that looks like in case folks have not had a hand on it yet. Next is the most important part of the webinar, which is the roadmap, which will be run by Yvonne. And that's where we will share with you what's lined up for the next 3 quarters. So not in the extreme long term, but somewhat in the short to mid term. A lot of interesting items in there, and would love to get your reactions on what you all feel. And then as Connor mentioned, we will reserve around 15 minutes towards the end for any Q&A. Worst case scenario, given the audience size of the audience, in case we are not able to get through all the questions, we will make sure that someone from our team reaches out with a response to you. Yep. All right. A lot has evolved at Workzone in the last 12 months. And the evolution really started around 18 months ago when we asked ourselves, what's the one thing we want to excel at, right? And so we kind of fine-tuned our focus a bit more. And the way it looks today is we essentially want to be a best-in-class PM platform for non-PMs. What does that mean? What that means is if you are a marketer, you should not need a PM certification or a tech degree to get work done on Workzone. The platform should be simple to use, easy to understand, should not overwhelm you, right? So that's the core guiding principle behind all that we are building and all that we are designing right now on Workzone. And it comes to life through a few elements. Number one, we are going deep into some of our core industries and core departments that we serve. So for example, a lot of our users tend to be either on the marketing function or the PMO function, right? And so we are building things on the platform which may or may not belong on a typical PM platform, but it makes complete sense on Workzone because it will help you simplify your day-to-day. Same with industries. We work with a lot of higher education teams, healthcare, credit unions, senior living homes, manufacturing, professional services. Many of these are mission critical industries, which means these industries are important for our day-to-day survival. And so again, just like functions and departments, we are building features on the platform that may or may not belong on a typical PM platform, but it makes sense, for example, in a higher context. Um, some of you may have noticed is our product development frequency has gone up significantly. We used to release new things once a quarter a couple of years ago. Now it's happening on a weekly basis. And a big part of that is because we have doubled our development team size, right? So lot many hands on the team trying to build some exceptionally good stuff. We've also brought on board folks like Ivan, industry veterans, people who have been there, done that, not just in the PM platform or work management space, but also in some of the industries that we serve, like healthcare and higher education. And their experience has been of paramount importance to us as we build things that are not only relevant, but genuinely helpful. Now, amongst all of this change, what is not changing are two things. One is human-led customer support. That is the backbone of Workzone. And the idea is when you as a user need support, you should not be banging your head against an AI chatbot. You should be able to reach out to a human being on our side who should be able to respond to you in an hour, if not a few minutes. So that is something we want to continue to double down on, irrespective of all the changes on the platform. The second piece that's not changing is the simplicity of the platform. We will make sure that the platform remains easy to use. Again, back to the non-PM component. We want to make sure it's easy to use, easy to understand, and does not require rocket science to run. All right. First of all, a big thank you to everyone who's taken the time and effort over the last 12 months to share your feedback. I have personally spoken to over 200 customers in the last 1 year. Our team collectively has been on over 500 hours of feedback calls, and we have received over 600 responses to the various surveys we have run, sharing ideas, thoughts, feature requests, etc. And so if we aggregate all the feedback we've received, there are 5 themes that stand out. One is users expect improved user experience, right? More intuitiveness with the platform. Second, this is mostly from admins, improved reporting. One of the statements I heard from a customer recently was, give us more insights, not just data. Third is integrations. People do not want Workzone to be living in a silo. And so we are working on a lot of things which will connect Workzone to the multiple systems you all use on a day-to-day basis. AI, of course, that word gets thrown around a lot. At Workzone, we have been very intentional about AI. One, because sure, it has a lot of potential, but it also has a lot of side effects, right? And so the word that we use internally a lot is responsible AI. And what that means at its crux is, how can we leverage AI to augment human capabilities, not replace? And that distinction is really important, which is we want to build things on Workzone using AI, which will genuinely help you level up your game without the risks that come along with it, which are very familiar to most of us. The other piece we are very mindful of is environment. AI, like all things, consumes a lot of power, and that can have negative impact on the environment. And that's something else we are very mindful of. And the way we bring that to life is through coding practices and a bunch of infrastructure that we're trying to think through and make sure whatever we do on AI is a net positive. That is very, very important. And you will see some of that as you look at the roadmap in the next few minutes. The last but not the least is most of you as users and teams, you run projects that are timeline-based, deadline-based. But some of our users also need more flexibility, more agility. And so we are developing more agile workflows on the platform, which will help you with projects that do not need strict timelines. Yeah. All right. So thanks to all the feedback, these are 5 items that we have released over the last few weeks and months. Some of the most popular features that we have launched. And so we wanted to give you all a quick glimpse of what these look like in action in case you haven't had your hand on it yet. So I'll stop sharing my deck for a bit and begin with Slack and Teams notification. It's a very simple utility, honestly, but the single biggest idea behind Slack and Teams is that if you are tagged on a piece of work on Workzone, or if someone mentions you on Workzone, but your primary communication platform at your organization is Microsoft Teams or Slack, we want to make sure you do not miss out on those Workzone notifications. And so to give you a glimpse of what that looks like, we actually use Workzone to run Workzone. This is our own Slack instance that has been integrated with the Workzone platform. And so you can see here, if I scroll slightly upwards, right? So there is Connor. He requested my approval on something that we are creating for a healthcare conference, right? So the notification showed up on Slack. I spend all my time in Slack or in Workzone, but mostly on Slack. And so when a notification like this shows up, not only does it let me know what I'm supposed to do, but it gives me a link. And when I click on that link, it takes me straight to that asset on the platform. If I scroll down further, Kindle, who's a marketing lead, she has mentioned me on a lot of projects, as you can see right here. And so again, long story short, it makes sure that I do not miss out on any important work that I'm being tagged on. Just makes my life easier. Plus point, if you have Slack or Teams installed on your mobile phones, it works on that as well. And so I travel a lot, which means when I get notified on Slack and Teams, I know there's something pending for me and for my attention. So that's the first one to begin with, but it's been adopted by a lot of our users, so I strongly recommend giving it a shot. Second is the Workzone template library. Now, templates have been on Workzone for a long, long time. I'm sure many of you have created your own templates and run with it for many, many years. What we have done, though, in the spirit of building more industry and department specific functions and features, is we have created our own set of pre-scoped project plans broken down by industry and department. So to give you a glimpse of what that looks like, if I go to Workzone and hit this add project button at the top, or any way you want to create a project, and scroll down, along with all the usual options that you see to create tasks, you will see a new button which says use pre-built Workzone templates. So what they are pre-scoped project plans that have pre-built tasks and subtasks, dependencies, and duration. So let's assume, let's say I'm a higher ed marketer, right? So I'll select higher education as the industry. And I'm on the marketing department, so I'll scroll down to the marketing department. And when I do that, I can see a whole bunch of pre-scoped templates which are relevant for higher education marketing teams. So let's say we want to organize a class reunion. And so let me just look up class reunion. There it is, right? So we're trying to organize a class reunion. All I need to do is select this template. It gives me a short description along with an estimated duration for a very lean team. So let's say assume a team of 1 or 2, really small team, right? Looks like it will take 37 working days to plan out this event. Now let's create a project out of it. I'll go at the top, select my workspace, say higher ed planning, enter a name, class reunion event, and then select a date, hit save and add tasks. There you go, right? So the class reunion project has been created. It's pre-populated with the various stages or milestones, planning, content, promotion. Under each of these milestones, there are specific tasks. The duration dates have been pre-populated based on how the template was configured. All you need to do is assign the responsible party, get started. If you want to edit this template, add subtasks or create a new task, all of that is absolutely a possibility, right? So long story short, these pre-built templates will help you get started with a standard project without the need to build from scratch, right? And there's a lot more we are working on in terms of adding additional industries and additional departments, with the core idea being we want to make sure your day in the life as a user is reflected through some of these project templates. So that's the second thing. Again, very popular, strongly recommend giving it a shot. Let's go to the third one. My favorite, external markups and approvals. Again, markups and approvals and proofing have been on the platform for many, many years. But we did something very recently, which is for the first time, we have made it possible for non-users or people without Workzone credentials to access our markups, which means let's say you're on a marketing team. I'm sticking with marketing just as an example to maintain consistency, but could be applicable for other teams as well. But let's say you're on a marketing team, you've created a brochure and you want your CEO's approval or you want another stakeholder's approval and review. What you can do is send that document through Workzone without the user being a Workzone user in the first place. So to give you an example of what that looks like, I'll open up my mailbox. This is something that Connor sent me. Let's assume I'm not a Workzone user, which means I do not have Workzone credentials. I get an email like this. Looks like Connor is requesting my approval on a higher education conference. Could be a brochure, likely a brochure. Yeah, it is a brochure. I click on this file and I'm taken to this page directly. No need to log in. What I can do here is look at the file. So hit view. And I'll give it a minute for the file to load. When the file loads and if it looks, there it is, right? So if it looks in line with my expectations, I can go back, hit approve and submit response. But let's say I have some comments on this file. Looks like the design could see a bit more love. So you know what? Let me actually go and mark up this file. So I'll hit markup file right here and zoom in and maybe make a comment against this text, which is, should we improve the visual layout? Hit post, right? So once I hit post, the comment will show up, Connor will get notified, and that's how the work begins, right? Again, the important part here is you do not need a Workzone credential to be able to do any of this, which means, and there is no cap in terms of how many people you can send it to. Could be hundreds, could be thousands, no cap whatsoever, right? So where this becomes helpful is if you're working with a lot of stakeholders who are not on Workzone, now you have a way to get their approval and get their feedback all in one place. All right, let's move to the next one, Kanban view. And this is more in line with the need for more agile and flexible workflows, right? So Kanban is a simple framework that allows people to drag and drop things when they want to get work done. And so I'll go back to my platform again, and let's go to all workspaces, and then collapse all these. So this is, by the way, our own instance of Workzone. These are the various departments configured as workspaces. So folks are used to the list view, the Gantt view. Now you will see a new button which says Kanban. If I hit Kanban, you see all the workspaces right here. But let's say I'm more of a visual person and I just want to drag and drop things. You see all these columns here, which are the status of the projects. So let's say I'm under the leadership team workspace. I can see a whole bunch of tasks, which are essentially cards listed here. Once we are, let's say, ready to move this task from future projects to up next, I can simply drag and drop, right? So very simple way to get work moving. Each of these cards come equipped with the standard project feature. So if I click on this, I will see all the overview and I'll see all the utilities that you have configured your platform for. No changes there whatsoever. But long story short, easy visual way to advance work for teams that do not need extremely timeline-based or deadline-based workflows. So those are the big four, the most popular ones that we've launched off late. The last one is an interesting one because it operates at the intersection of data and visualization. So what we have now done is we have launched something called the OData connector. And in simple words, what that will let you do, especially for the admins and managers, is you can plug in any data from Workzone, any field, any number, any data point, and connect it to your data visualizer. It could be Power BI, it could be Tableau, Google Sheets, spreadsheets, Excel sheets, whatever BI tool you use. You can create your own charts, your own visuals using any Workzone data. So that has unlocked a lot of potential for many of our customers, where people are now able to convert some of our data into insights. And in a number of cases, a lot of the executive teams, they use tools like Power BI because they don't want to log into Workzone, or they don't want to scroll through a bunch of reports. They just want a high level view of what's going on. That is where something like an OData connector is super relevant. So that's a very quick glimpse of what we have launched recently, completely based on your feedback. Thank you again. And so with that, I will pass on the mic to Ivan, who will now show us what's lined up in the future.
Yes, I think this is your slide too.
My bad. There you go. You're right. All right. So what you saw so far was a lot of context and a lot of historical stuff. This is a glimpse of what we're trying to do going forward. And so before we get into the actual roadmap, what we wanted to share with this group is essentially what's our product philosophy, right? And so if you look at the slide bottom up, we have identified 3 core user goals which will define all that we build on Workzone, which is helping teams get organized, helping teams and individuals meet deadlines, helping teams collaborate better. Simple, easy to understand. We call them our value pillars. But whatever we build on Workzone will be in this direction. And if we combine these 3, essentially that's your entire work management / product management framework, right? The way these 3 value pillars come to life is through what we call enablers. First is ease of use. Platform should be simple to use, easy to understand, no rocket science here. Second is our bread and butter. That is our project and portfolio management tools, right? So all that you see on the Workzone platform right now falls in this bucket. And third is integrations and ecosystem. How can we make sure that Workzone does not sit in a silo? Instead, the platform speaks to all the other platforms and tools that you use on a day-to-day basis, and creates a more cohesive ecosystem, right? So these 3 are the fundamentals on which we are building what we are building. Now, on top of the horizontal line, you will see 2 new additions. First is what we call user-centric solutions. And the way we think about them is again, vertical solutions, which means solutions that are relevant to the departments we serve and to the industries we serve. You just saw external markups. That's a great example of a vertical solution. In many cases, something like that would require all of the users to be on the platform. We thought, since, for example, our higher teams, healthcare teams, credit union teams, they deal with hundreds of stakeholders. Why restrict them through user count? Why not come up with a way which makes it possible for people to access some of these tools without the need to log into the platform? So that's a great example. Templates are another great example of vertical solutions. And then on top of that, we are doing some things proactively, what we call user delight. In simple terms, the goal is to transform Workzone into an intelligent digital assistant. And that comes to life through 2 things. One is responsible AI, and second is a lot many self-serving utilities on the platform, things that you can access without the need for much training or support, right? So that's the backbone behind what we're trying to do in terms of transforming Workzone into something that can be genuinely helpful beyond just being a systems of record. Now, while all of these items are new and you will see a lot of transformation happening over the next few months, something that does not change, again, is our human-led customer support. Again, we do not want people to be confused chatting with an AI chatbot. We want people to be able to access humans on our side the moment you need them. This is a function we're actually doubling down on, unlike what's happening in the industry in the tech space right now, where there is this trend of replacing customer support with AI chatbots. We are doing the exact opposite and doubling down on this piece. So that remains constant as we go along and build out new stuff. So with that, now, Ivan, I can genuinely hand over the mic to you to take us forward.
All right, thanks, Ash. Ivan with Workzone here. I'm the Chief Technical and Product Officer here, and I'm responsible for the product roadmap and for the engineering team that delivers it. So first, I want to start with there's a lot of other things that are not on this roadmap. We have about 20 minutes left to cover, and these are some of the highlights. Then there's a lot of other work that's happening kind of behind the scene to keep the platform performing and secure and deliver on time. So the first big item on our roadmap is introduction of new user interface and new user experience. In line with the our goal to keep the platform simple, easy to use, reduce onboarding time, and increase the return of investment of time spent on the platform for our users. We are building a brand new user interface, which is going to be not only very clean and very neat looking, but also is functionally optimized. So having had about 20 years of experience with how the platform is being used, we are making changes to the user interface, not only visually but functionally, to make some functions easier to access, to make some functions more apparent, so a user who is not an expert in Workzone doesn't need to look at the manual. How do I do this? But how do I do this is obvious in the interface, and which reduces onboarding time. It reduces the amount of clicks that it takes to get a particular workflow executed. It is, it's brand new build. It is based on modern technology. It is going to be built with what's called responsive UI. So the page doesn't refresh often, and all the work happens kind of within the page. Would you show some of the snapshots, Ash? So these are some screenshots of mock-ups of the new UI, starting with the login screen. We are also incorporating other elements, like, for example, on the login screen, we are going to put buttons that allow login with Google Workspace or Office 365, because these are the two major platforms that are used by probably 90% of our customers. So users don't need to remember separate passwords. They don't need to even configure single sign-on, which is somewhat cumbersome and administratively heavy. They can just click the button and then log in with their Google Workspace credentials or log in with their Office 365 credentials and start using the platform. Here's a snapshot of the projects module, which is the kind of the center of the product. Again, clean, modern, customizable UI. At the top, under projects, there is a number of quick buttons that allow the user to choose. I want to look at all unassigned tasks, or all in progress, or all completed, instead of having to create a filter. I want to filter by this type of task or that type of task. So these frequently used choices will be available right there in the UI with a single click. And because some people's workflow is, I want to look at project status. Other people's workflow is, I want to look at all things that are assigned to me, or all things that need to be assigned, or I need to follow up on things that are in progress. This gives the user a very quick access to all these options with a single click, without having to go and look for them in another part of the product. And then the first part of this new user interface we're introducing later this year or early January is a refresh of our documents module, which is very heavily used across all of you. We have customers that have, I think we had 100,000 folders in in one instance, which makes the documents module our probably mostly heavy used part of the product. This is a snapshot of how the new documents module is going to look like, with much better folder navigation, with much better information representation of the contents of the folder. So this page with the icons for file types is, it took fairly good amount of work to re-engineer, because we wanted to put all the necessary information and actions kind of at your fingertips without the page looking overwhelming and overly busy. So finding this balance is one of the goals that we had. And then once you select the file, an action bar pops up at the bottom, so which is a common metaphor today with SaaS products. The other major improvement that we are making is on this slide. It's a little bit hidden, but it is that button there called Google Drive, which would allow the system administrator at your company to integrate Workzone with Google Drive and Workzone with Office 365, OneDrive, or SharePoint. So all your files, regardless of whether they're in Google Drive or Workzone or Office 365, will appear there as if they were all in Workzone, without you having to think, without you either downloading a file, you download the file from Google Drive or Office 365, you upload it in Workzone, then you have two copies of the file, and we don't know which one's the latest. Or having to put links between Workzone and your external files. This way, all your assets appear in a single pane of glass, as if they were all in Workzone or all in Google Workspace. So given how heavily this functionality is used, we believe this is going to be a major improvement in particularly file-heavy workflows. The second major functionality we're delivering is completely reimagined dashboards and reports. Something we call Workzone Analytics. It is a brand new purpose-built reporting and dashboarding engine with very rich capabilities to build flexible dashboards any way you want to kind of visualize your data. So basically, you will have a full, fully capable, BI tool within Workzone with a lot of pre-built reports and dashboards. Then each of those will have interactive capabilities to slice and dice the data. So if you're looking at, for example, number of tasks completed over time, and then you want to slice this data and say, but I want to look at this type of tasks, or I want to look at tasks assigned to people within these groups. These dashboards themselves are not just a static image, but they are interactive, and the viewer can kind of slice and dice and self-serve themselves with data. We get a ton of requests from customers. Can you build us a report that does that? Can you build us a report that kind of looks like this? With our new Workzone Analytics, first you will have access to much better looking, much more interactive reports and dashboards. And for advanced users that would like to build their own, we will provide the ability to build these reports and dashboards, completely custom dashboards and reports yourself, or have somebody at Workzone build a custom report or dashboard for you in a very short period of time. But building these dashboards, you have at your disposal a great deal of flexibility of how they look, how the data is presented, a choice of, I think, like 30 different widgets that you can put on the dashboard. Here I have some screenshots of how the reporting engine looks like. You can put widgets that have KPIs. You can put widgets that have time series. You can put pie charts. You can put if you have maybe tasks and you have a field where there is location, you can put the locations on a map. There are a lot of different pre-built visualization widgets that make this building of reports and dashboards very easy. So so for customers that want to take data and want to integrate it into their own data warehouse or Excel or Google Sheets and want to kind of curate and manipulate the data and build their own, we have APIs. We also have our OData connector, which provides integration directly into data warehouse or BI tool. For customers that don't want to go through all this effort, because this is fairly involved, and one needs to know how to integrate the data and then what the data actually is like, they can use our built-in reporting and dashboarding engine out of the box. And then the last thing that we are planning on releasing in 2025 is workload and billing forecasting. It's we've heard a lot of asks around reporting on future work, both on what are the future commitments or what is the projected workload and expense in the future. We are building a set of tools that allow a user to view what are the tasks that are booked in the future and what are the expenses that are booked in the future, and how does this align against historic data. 2026 aligned with Ash's note about responsible AI and making AI actually be helpful and facilitate work. We're launching AI-enabled project and workspace summary and overview. I'll do a little demo here shortly. We're launching also persona-based UX, which is kind of the next step of this new clean and functionally improved UI, is that depending on the type of work a person is doing in Workzone, the UI will look somewhat different and have different functions available kind of with one click to the user, because people that manage projects, they need one set of functionality. People that actually deliver on tasks, they need different set of functionality. Their workflow is different. So instead of trying to make a single view suit everybody, and then there's a compromise, you need to make a compromise. You either kind of satisfying everybody at 50%, or the UI becomes very heavy and very visually heavy and kind of complicated. Our thinking is we will make the UI change depending on the persona that's using it. So a project manager will have a slightly different view from what somebody who's in Workzone to take their assigned tasks and update them. And then the last thing is, we've heard a lot about integration between Workzone and other products. We are building integrations with a number of digital asset management tools, which is similar to Google Drive and Google Workspace, but digital asset management products, they are centered towards managing the workflow and the storage of marketing assets. And given our heavy marketing customer base, being able to look at your assets as they reside in the digital asset management is also going to be a great deal of improvement of, instead of having to copy paste or put links, having everything in one place. Would you give me the next slide, Ash, with the AI use cases? So here is a kind of a high-level concept of how we're thinking about embedding AI in the product. The first thing is is a quick info button. So as you're looking at a project that has 100, 200, it is not out of the ordinary to have a project with thousands. The question is, what is this project about for somebody who's not familiar with it? We are going to put a kind of a quick info button. When you click on the info button, you get AI synthesized answer of what is this project about and what is its current status in like one paragraph. So really quick ability to get a comprehensive but high level understanding of what is this project about, which for project managers that own 100 or 1,000 projects, as I said, 1,000 tasks per project is not uncommon. This gives you ability to very quickly kind of get a grasp of what is this project or this workspace about within a couple of seconds, instead of having to scroll through all the tasks and wonder, so what does each task mean? That's how you get one paragraph. Okay, I know what this project's about. Then in line, kind of as a next step to that is adding an overview functionality where you can get a, when you click overview, you get executive summary of the project and the tasks in greater detail than you would if you're just scrolling through the project. Now, if that's something that you want to dig further into, is you can click the next, kind of the give me more button and get a bigger summary of the project with more detail about who are the stakeholders and who are the task owners and what's left on the project, what's done in the project. And then if now you want to know more, you can go in the natural language, kind of the agentic interface or the natural language interface and ask questions like, so what changed this month? Or knowing my history of projects like this, what tasks here are at risk? And we have the capability to look at all the projects of similar ilk that have happened over the past year and say these tasks, these 8 types of tasks tend to slip. What resources are overutilized? Or create a kind of a hook and say, if a task starts slipping by more than 3 days, let me know. So you're going to be able to ask a question and get an answer, and this answer may be a synthesized information based on the tasks, or maybe list of tasks. You can say, give me tasks that are overdue by more than 30%. Right? Another thing that we are together with the AI synthesized project overview, we're also introducing these snapshot dashboards that provide a kind of a one-page pane of glass overview of a project, or if you're using workspaces as to contain programs with multiple projects, you can have dashboards with project status or program status, where you have single page with most of the relevant information. What's the overall project health? What's the how far ahead, behind are we? How are we on expenses, on time, on tasks? What are the risks? What are the risks, milestones, and who are the key people in the project? Who are the stakeholders? Who are the key people involved with delivering tasks? And then you can take these high-level dashboards and either incorporate them in a presentation, which again is one common workflow that I gather from customers, is that they would take a report out of Workzone, or some of the more data advanced customers, they would be using the data connector, put the data in Excel, generate some charts, generate a dashboard, and then take a screenshot of this dashboard and put it in a presentation. This is something you can just take it as a PNG, as a graphics file, and embed it directly in a presentation. Or you can take this dashboard with a kind of a share button and send it to an executive or send it to another team member, instead of having to do this very similarly to the external file sharing and external approvals. Somebody who's not a user in Workzone, you can take this project snapshot and say, here's the project snapshot for you to review. And then maybe go a couple of slides back to the roadmap. Then Q2 2026, we are building several features that are strengthening our core project management functionality, AI-based forecasting on utilization, hours, durations, and expenses, which then allows us to do kind of a risk analysis of how does something compare to baseline, project baselining, which is the ability to take a snapshot of a project at a point in time and then compare future against the baseline. And typical use pattern of project baselining is we would gather, as a team, and we would kind of fill in the blanks and say, okay, so this is our baseline. Project is going to take 120 days, and it's going to take $83,000, and it's going to take that many man hours in these categories. Then, as the project gets, delivered over time, then we can compare how are we doing against baseline. We are also planning on building agile, so Scrum Agile workflows. Similarly to, today we have kind of a traditional waterfall project management. We have Kanban. We're also adding agile ability to do agile workflows, which consists of having all the tasks in a backlog and then having sprints or fixed fixed time windows in which you take these tasks, you assign them to sprints, and then people deliver them throughout the sprints, and then at the end of the sprint you take a baseline of what's delivered, what's not delivered, and you take things into the next sprint. So fairly common workflow. It started in software development, but a lot of non-engineering teams have adopted the idea of agile workflows. So we've heard from a number of customers that there's teams in their organization that want to do Scrum Agile. There's other teams that like to do Kanban. There's other teams that like to do waterfall project management. So we want to provide the ability to not try have a choice and fit the needs of whoever different teams, versus trying to make everybody either follow waterfall methodology or Kanban or Agile, which happens like if you're using a software engineering tool for project management, they're all kind of very centered around Agile. And we want to provide the ability for different teams within an organization to choose their own. And last but not least, continue work on this natural language interface where you can ask a question, get an answer. The answer may be a list of tasks, maybe a metric, maybe some synthesized data. All right, so that's all I had. I'm a little bit behind. I think we're a little bit behind schedule. So we have about 9 minutes for Q&A. Thanks, everyone. You have Ash's contacts here on the last slide, and we will share the slides after the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And Connor, you want to throw some of the questions in the webinar, and then we'll respond to the the rest of the questions over email.
Sure, yeah. I do have a few here teed up for you. I can read them verbally for you. It looks like one from Tom for you, Yvonne. Does the AI overview crawl all data within projects, including comments and files, or just tasks, assignees, and timestamps?
Yeah, so at this point, we are crawling data only in projects, tasks, workspaces, kind of the metadata. Crawling files is functionality that we are considering on building. I don't have a timeline for crawling files yet, but this will also include things, not only for AI data, summarization, but also for search and, functionality where you can search in contents of files. But the problem's a little, given the breadth of files we have in the product, the problem is somewhat complicated. That's why it hasn't been implemented yet.
All right. Ash, there is a question for you here, so I'll toss one your way. Are you seeing that one assigned to you, Ash?
I'm seeing a lot of questions assigned to me. Which one are you referring to, Connor?
Perfect. Yeah, so I'll just kick things off here. Let's see. Ash, I did see you responded to that one. All right. So another one here for you then, Yvonne. Sorry, Ash. It looks like you had already knocked a few out by typing it. Yvonne, a few questions about integrating with dams. One is asking if there is a specific dam, but Meliana is also asking if there are any that we have in mind, including Canto. Is Canto one of them?
So the ones we have in mind are.
There's one more on Binder as well. Is Binder up for consideration?
That's the other one, Binder. Yeah.
Yeah. So the dams that we've heard about are Binder, Picture Perfect. No, sorry, Picture Park, Binder, Media Valet, and Adobe Creative Cloud.
Awesome. And as always, if there's a strong need for other integrations or DAM softwares that you specifically use, feel free to send that stuff over to us, and we'll absolutely take that into consideration as we're continuing to develop these features. All right. A few more here. When will the new documents and projects UI UX be introduced?
So the documents module will be introduced. Our goal is by the end of the year, so by mid-December. We're fairly far ahead on actually building the new documents module. The projects module is mid 2026. Given that the projects module is kind of most of the product, we're being extra careful and thoughtful about how exactly we're introducing the new projects module, because it's a change. This is part of the functionality that is it's used by 100% of the customers. So touching it is needs to be very very thoughtful.
Yeah, Ivan, there's a connected question to that, which says, I know you mentioned platform optimization is going to happen in Q4 25. Do you know when exactly the new platform look will launch? And so I know we are launching the documents module in Q4, but could you provide our listeners a bit more visibility into the overall look and feel?
So, I mean, in terms of performance optimization, we are, before December, we are launching some performance improvements for large projects. So customers that have large projects with a lot of complexity, we are testing right now. We've already built it. Some additional functionality that makes these projects be much more snappy in the UI. So they display and they render much faster. So this is one thing. And then Q1 of 2026, we are also we're going to launch the new UI for approvals and forms and workflows, and then followed by the project management module. So I think that's our plan as of right now.
Okay. Connor, there's a bunch of AI-centric questions here. Do we want to knock them out?
Yeah, certainly. Here is one from Michelle. Michelle, thanks for the input. I can see the AI functionality being useful in projects prioritization. I'd love for that to be considered as a feature with options for input from our team as to what types of projects should be weighted in terms of their priority, such as VIP stakeholders, high visibility events or outputs, revenue goals, etc. This was a really great look into what's ahead with Workzone. Thank you all for your work and insights. Awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle. And Ivan, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that. That seems more of just a suggestion as we're developing
Yes.
the AI functionality.
Yeah, so through the agentic UI, you can ask a question, or sort my projects or or tasks in a order by who's the executive sponsor, or what is the revenue impact, or what is the expected customer satisfaction impact, whatever criteria. Our AI does not know what's important to each one of you, and that's why you have to kind of contextualize and say, this is what's important to me. Sort my projects or prioritize them. Sort them in order of priority as determined by revenue impact or executive stakeholder. Look at the output and make sense of it. And we use AI in a similar manner. Is we ask a question and then we look at the output, if it actually meets our expectation, if it's actually valuable, right? Because the answers to these qualitative questions, like what's the revenue impact or who's the stakeholder, requires a lot of context that somehow needs to be inserted into Workzone.
All right. So I think that is just about everything here. Actually, let's see. Yep, that is one that was already answered. So I think we've answered the majority of them, folks. We are at the end of our time. We will certainly look through all of the questions. If there are any of that have been left unanswered, we will certainly follow up with you with additional information.